Thou comest like a silver deer, thou fleest like a wind goddess, flitting through thickets of thy pure desire. These things are only images to thy earth, but truest truth of that which in thee sleeps. What you are seeing, all this happiness, etc., they are only images. You are not seeing the truest truth. She will discover that thing, she will know that thing. For such is the spirit, a sister of the gods. That is the spirit of Savitri, the sister of the gods. So, her spirit is a feminine spirit. Thy earthly body, lovely to the eye, thou art kin in joy to heaven's sons. And then he says, on heights of happiness living, doom asleep. You are on happiness in the seventh world, seventh heaven, and doom is lying asleep here. You are not aware of it. As high, as happy might the waking be, if for all time doom could be left to sleep. It is not going to be so. Doom cannot be left. It must come out. It has a role to play. It has a function. It has something to do. It cannot be left. Don't live in your dream world. You have to come out. He says, no, by the safety of thy dreams. You are living in the safety of your dreams. But you have to come out of the dream and see the perilous world. And out of that dream, you have to wake up. Wake up to what? To the doom. If for all time doom could be left to sleep. In other words, doom cannot be left to sleep all the while. It has to wake up. You have to come out of it. And obviously, the story moves on. But Ashwapati answered to the seer. This is what Narad was telling, general description. He has already kind of given a preface of what is going to happen in those 2 lines. Now he says, but Ashwapati. Now Narad was not speaking to Ashwapati at all. In fact, in a way, he was speaking to himself. At the most, you can say to Savitri. He was speaking to Savitri. He cried to her. He cried to her. You see, all that thing. In that context, we are here. But Ashwapati answered. But Ashwapati answered. Now, of course, Narad does not expect an answer from Savitri. Yes, she could have asked him, tell me what's the matter, you see. Your wife, what are you talking about? You let me know, you see. She could have asked him, you see. What about, you see. But even before she comes out with an answer, Ashwapati interjects. He rushes through and answers to the seer. Because he was asking, Narad was asking, oh no, if doom could be left to sleep, that is a sufficiently ominous statement for the father in the normal circumstances. If Narad is making that kind of statement, naturally it is a concern for the parents. Why you are talking like that? And therefore, it is natural that he would immediately interject and ask. But Ashwapati answered, O deathless sage who knowest all things here, if I could read by the ray of my own wish, I might see the steps of a young god-like life. This is my wish. In Savitri's coming, I can see the steps of a young god-like life. and you are talking about doom. If doom could be left to sleep, you see. So naturally he is going to ask question. And lives in great, because you are a deathless sage, you have got another vision. It has read and broken the hidden seals. Narad has already seen what is behind all that, and therefore he is making inquiry about things. Although in pauses of our human lives, earth gives, etc., etc., and he describes what Savitri is. Her body like a brimmed pitcher of delight. So it is a jar of delight, Savitri herself. Shaped in a splendor of gold-colored bronze, as if to seize earth's truths of hidden bliss. Dream-made illumined mirrors are her eyes. Even as her body, such is she within. Heaven's lustrous mornings gloriously recur, and then all beautiful things eternal seem and new to virgin wonder in a crystal soul. Obviously, she has discovered a soul, so everything look to her all around will look very sweet, very beautiful, very happy, very joyous. But the joy of life could last, nor pain through his bronze note into her rhythmed days. This is what he is wishing. He is talking about doom. Behold her, singer, with thy patient gaze. In other words, he is requesting Narad to bestow his blessings on her. And let thy blessings chant on this fair child of his. Oh, the nectar of sorrowless life. This is kind of natural to the father, you see. And cast like a happy snare, felicity. And then of course he says that as grow the great and golden boundlessly on Alaknanda's branch, you see, on Alaknanda's banks. So cast she her felicity on men. And what is Savitri? A flame of radiant happiness. That is Savitri. The harp of God falls mute when she speaks. That is the quality of Savitri. And then of course he says finally, yes, you are talking of doom. He says, but I am sorry, of sorrow songs we have enough. This is what our life is. All along we have been hearing only the songs of sorrow, suffering. And therefore he says, once let unwounded pass a mortal life. He is asking, he is praying for blessings, that let her life pass unwounded. Obviously then Narad keeps quiet, silent is sat. He does not know how to answer immediately, although he knows the answer, you see. But then he has to prepare that thing, and therefore innocently is asking, as if he does not know anything. Yes, Savitri has walked into the palace, into the hall. Please let me know where she had gone, for what purpose she had gone, you see. Yeah, he is coming on the human level, you see. You see. On what high mission went her hastening wheels. Now, he is sitting in the palace, he had never seen her chariot rushing through, you see, but he has seen from above. But he knows hastening wheels because the way which she is rushing into the palace, hasteningly she went to the palace to tell something immediately to her parents. So that he has sensed already, you see. Made visible, paradise made visible in her eyes. The moment he looks at it, and then of course the king answers, the red Ashoka watched her going forth, which now sees her return. So that is 1 year journey of Savitri. Ashoka blossoms in the summer. So while she is walking out of the palace, the Ashoka was in full bloom. Now the Ashoka is again in full bloom and she has entered in. So Savitri was moving around for 1 year. It could be, of course, 1 year, it could be 2 years, but it will be in multiples of years, you see. So essentially 1 year. And what for? Led by a distant call, her vague swift flight. Thread the summer morn. You see, again, that summer, we have got this thing repeatedly appearing in Savitri, summer. The whole thing, meeting, etc., is taking place in the month of summer. Narad is coming here in the month of summer. So she had gone out in search of her life partner. She has come back now. The red Ashoka has seen her going. It is seeing her coming back now. And what has happened in between, I don't know. That is what Ashwapati says. And therefore he says, he is asking Savitri, whom hast thou chosen kingliest among men? Reveal. Tell us, who you have chosen as your life partner? And Savitri now describes how she met Satyavan in the Shelva woods and how she has decided to be with him, who is Satyavan, Devasena and all that thing, you see. And she announces, I have met on the wild forest lonely verge. My father has chosen. This is done. This is done. No further argument. I have decided. You may not be happy for an obvious reason that you are a king and you might be expecting me to find a prince. But here is a boy, here is a person who is living in a forest. Doesn't matter. I have done. This is done. My father had chosen. This is done. Now, of course, we have seen that the meeting of Satyavan and Savitri in the forest was again in the summer morning, maybe again just for 4 hours or so, because in the blazing sun she is coming back, returning, noon. On the high cupola of the noon, the marriage takes place and Savitri returned. So maybe they were meeting there just for 3 or 4 hours, but she has found everything, she has discovered everything. Well, that is what we have here, but it is possible, if you want to really kind of rationalize, that Savitri goes to the Shelva forest. She has been traveling from place to place, staying in different palaces, in different places, in temples, on river banks, in palaces, villages. She is traveling all the while. It is not that she suddenly meets somebody and finished. It's not that. Of course, it is there, but it is very likely that Savitri, why is Savitri coming towards these hermitages? Group of hermitages. Because she is going like that from place to place. Group of hermitages are there. This is another way of saying that possibly Savitri stayed there at least for a few weeks and they got mutually acquainted more and more intimately in the normal sense, and then they decided to get married. That could be the normal. But all that thing is kept under suspense. It is immediate recognition of theirs, who they are. Who is Satyavan? Savitri has immediately found. Who Savitri is, that Satyavan has immediately found. And therefore there is no question of their living together, or being together, meeting there, or dating, or what you want to call it, for a few days or few weeks. No. It was an instantaneous recognition of their existence. This is done. Now this is important. This is done. Savitri is not going to change the decision. It is the power of love that has awakened in her soul, which is speaking it out. Which is telling, yes, fixed, nothing more. And Obviously, Ashwapati sees a heavy shadow float over the name, above the name. Ashwapati is a yogi. The moment the name is uttered, he sees a shadow over the head. But at the same time, he also sees that there is a sudden, stupendous light chasing that shadow. A heavy shadow float above the name. This you can link up with what Narad has said. Heavy shadow float over the name of Satyavan is linked up with, if for all time doom could be left to sleep. It is a doom which Ashwapati is seeing over the head of Satyavan the moment Savitri utters the name Satyavan. There is a kind of corroboration between what Narad is saying and what Ashwapati is seeing. Sudden heavy shadow and a doom could be left asleep. See, there is a kind of a well-knitted argument in the whole of presentation of the epic, you see. But what we don't have in Narad is a sudden and stupendous light. Narad is living hanging with the shadow. But actually there is also behind that a sudden and stupendous light. Obviously, because Narad is saying he doesn't have to wait to hear the name Satyavan. Ashwapati, the moment he hears the name Satyavan, he sees this thing. Narad sees throughout the whole thing. Well hast thou done, and I approve the choice. Well, he has to approve it. Because he had told her, you go and find out your life partner, and that should be all right for me. If you have chosen this boy, although he may not be of a stately, princely state and all that, I approve that choice. It is your choice you have made, okay, yeah, I agree with that. Well hast thou done. This is more perplexing. Why it is well? That he has not told. But his vision is telling, he sees the shadow, he sees the light, and therefore it is well. And then he says to Narad, he has explained to Savitri, but he is now turning towards Narad and says, O singer of ultimate ecstasy. He is asking for blessings for his daughter.
He wants Narad to prove the choice also.
Yeah. Now, ultimate ecstasy. The word ultimate, ecstasy is all right, ultimate. Today, in the immediate context, it may look towards doom. But ultimately, that doom is going to be an occasion of bliss. Ultimate in that sense. In the long process of evolution, march, etc., whatever you want to call it, it will prove itself to be an ecstasy. Now that is what we could see in the context of the narrative here. But this is also ultimate ecstasy in that sense of the story. But singer of ultimate ecstasy, this is a qualification of Narad. Whatever he is going to see, the highest ecstasy of joy, of enchantment, of love, of beauty. There is nothing. par excellence, you see. No plus ultra, nothing is beyond that. He is the singer of that. The topmost happiness, ecstasy. Lend not, but therefore, because he says, lend not dangerous vision to the blind, because by native right thou hast seen clear. He saw the doom, he knows it, but we are mortal creatures, small people who don't have understanding of anything at all. We are ignorant people here. So don't give us that knowledge, you see.